Good evening, and welcome to another Mothman podcast. We are your number one source for sci-fi and paranormal podcasts. Also be listening for podcasts from Moth and Flame. You'll be hearing about hypnotherapy and mediumship.
And also, please like and subscribe and comment on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, and more. And you can find out a lot more about our services on mothmanpodcast.com.
Good evening, Amanda.
How you doing?
Hey, this is going to be another one of our podcasts into our Halloween series. And tonight we're going to be talking a little extra. We want you to go back and listen to our Mothman podcast, which says, is zombies really alive in North Carolina, or do they exist in North Carolina? So go back and listen to that podcast also. But we're going to expand on our zombies tonight because Amanda had a great story that she wanted to share with our listeners. And she started talking to me, and I said, whoa, let's put this one on the air. So Amanda and I are going to be talking about zombies tonight.
Yes, which happens to be one of my total all-time favorite horror genres. I was telling Darrell, I've seen like all of the zombie movies. I don't have a favorite. I think all of them are great for different reasons. But the reason I got into zombies to begin with was I wasn't working the first year that I was married to my ex-husband, and he's like a big horror movie freak, and he had tons of books on horror, and there were a lot of nonfiction. So I just grabbed one time, and it was called The Serpent and the Rainbow. And it ends up being the story of this professor who goes down to Haiti because he hears that they can really make zombies. And it's just pretty fascinating what ends up happening as far as like he befriends a witch doctor, and the witch doctor kind of reveals his secrets and tells him like the formulation that the guy was using to create zombies and how he learned it. And yeah, it's just really neat. And it had started because he had heard of a guy who supposedly was dead, but then appears in his own village, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years later. And people were like, oh, well, he's a zombie now. And in Haiti, that was just like, well, of course, duh. And, Americans are like, well, what does that mean? You buried this guy and now he's walking around the streets. What's going on? So this guy had gone to research this stuff.
He worked for a pharmaceutical company. Is that
yeah,
correct?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they injected this person with something, right? And
it wasn't an injection exactly. It was a complicated kind of voodoo powder. And I don't know how they get it into the person. I think they mix it with their food somehow, without their knowing, obviously. And it causes the person to die. And I know one of the main ingredients was pufferfish. And pufferfish is one of those, if it doesn't kill you, it'll put you into a coma where everyone will think you're dead. And you can hear and feel and everything, but you can't speak or move. And your heart rate is so low that it's just undetectable even with a stethoscope or anything. And so one of the main ingredients of this is pufferfish. And that's probably the one thing that is putting these people into this coma, death-like state that then the witch doctor digs them up later.
so this is a common practice now in some of the countries.
Common enough, yeah.
In Haiti and places like that.
Yeah, it definitely happens.
So wow, so they have their own zombie.
Yeah, they do. And the purpose, in case you're wondering, like, okay, well, why am I going to do this? Sometimes it's revenge, to get revenge on an individual. But what ends up happening every time is that the witch doctor uses them as a slave at that point. And they can kind of keep them in a state where they continue to be enslaved by giving them more drugs and herbs and things. But there's also the thought that there's probably some brain damage that occurs, so that when they are dug up and revived, they're not quite all there, and they're very open to, if the guy says, go pick up that big rock and move it over there, he just does it. So they do use them for slavery, basically.
And if you you look at zombies and you go back and research it, especially down in South America and Haiti and some of these other countries, it always leads back to voodoo, right?
It does, yeah.
So, and I guess we discussed in our prior podcast talking about witches that one of the things was pagan religion, and so this is a form of pagan religion. Is that correct?
It's definitely voodoo was brought over from West Africa, and it was basically the main practices of West Africa and what those tribes practiced as their religion. And it was brought over when people brought slaves over, and they maintained their religion, but they were also Christianized usually by their slave owner, as in like a forced Christianization. And what ended up happening was the West African religions got mixed in with the very weak Christian religion, and voodoo was sort of the product of that.
And now with voodoo too, you have, I guess I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Loa.
Loa. Sounds right. Loa. Yeah.
And which is a form of belief that Loa enters the body like a medium, and then takes control of the body, and causes the person at that point to have no pain or can't feel any pain or anything like that.
Oh,
and
wow.
so that's
so is it like a possession?
Yeah, it's from what I've been reading, it's more like an entity entering the body, like a spirit, and takes the body over.
Okay,
and so that's part of that pagan religion.
Oh wow, okay,
and goes into that. And I guess the witch doctor would be the one that it would take over, and then the witch doctor would do whatever a witch doctor does.
And what's interesting in voodoo is, from my understanding, a lot of the witch doctors are female, and there's a little bit less that are male, but it's mostly like a female-led religion.
Wow, that's interesting. It's showing here in Jamaica, Brazil and the United States and elsewhere, voodoo and does less with zombies and the dolls than other cultures do. In other cultures, they use the doll, the pins to stick in to cause pain and this sort of thing. And then I guess the zombie, where they give the person whatever drugs to paralyze the mind and take control of their body. So.
And I think the zombie thing, is mostly Haitian. I've really never heard of it in other cultures, but I mean, I could be wrong about that. It might be more universal than I know. Do you know anything about Santeria? Is it close to voodoo, or do you know?
It's my understanding it's a spinoff.
Okay.
Of voodoo. There's a lot of parallel beliefs and things that go along with that. But I believe there's more speaking to the dead there than there is in voodoo.
Really? Interesting.
Voodoo is more of, I guess, blood rituals and things of that sort. And then we have the heal by magic, I guess is what it's called.
Okay.
So, see if I can...
If you hear squeaking in the background, that would be my dog.
We have a special guest with us tonight.
The fire alarm was kind of going off and scared her. And so, yeah, she's sitting in her stroller.
So, you said Santeria, right?
Yeah.
It means the worship of saints.
Oh, okay. So it is more of a worship of the dead kind of thing.
And was more into the Roman Catholic beliefs.
Okay, got
Which
it.
is a long ways from zombies, I think. but there's still some parallel.
Yeah.
Especially it's brought out in 1950s. There was more of that than anything else.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
I know we just had a guest on named Pooh, who's a medium, and she's been doing some training with me to improve my skills. And she had told me to get this stuff called Florida water. And it's basically kind of a stinky cologne, in my opinion. It doesn't smell great, but you dilute it, and it's used in Santeria and in Voodoo as a holy water. And so it can substitute as holy water. So I did buy a bottle of it. I haven't really tried it out yet, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
But you have got some?
I do have some.
Okay.
I also have this chalk that's made from eggshell that is also a voodoo recipe that you can use the same as you use salt to kind of like create a barrier around your home. You just use this chalk and mark a line.
Oh. The looking into the Oxford English Dictionary, they're talking about zombies. Mm-hmm. But they talk about it in the context of it's now a global phenomena, and it's been taken out of context, especially when you're speaking of zombies. Zombies is supposed to be The Walking Dead,
right?
But if you do the research, the original research into zombies comes back to more of a hallucinogenic, paralyzing drug, which causes the body to a living body to feel no pain, and to walk in a dead sense of being, I guess is what you would say.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole zombie thing came about. It's because these people walk around
staring into... Well, they do bury them.
Well, and they do bury them. And then
in that
true.
sense that they,
so
but
they
it
are
is, we do talk about like, they were talking about the zombie raccoons. Well, it ended up being a group of raccoons that had rabies. And then there's the zombie drug that I can't even remember what kind of drug it was, but it caused that crazy guy in Florida to bite another guy to death. And, they were saying, well, he was a zombie. Well, he never died. He took drugs and lost his mind,
right.
So it is taken out of context all the time. You're right.
Well, the word now suggests that the vital human force leaving the shell of the body, and ultimately a creature human is formed, but lacking self-awareness, intelligence, and a soul.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So that's the word of the zombie.
Yeah.
In that it's not like a decaying body. It's a body that's walking around. That's an empty shell.
It doesn't have a soul.
It doesn't have a soul. Here again, we start talking about the soul. I start talking about the energy within the brain.
Yeah.
And so does that mean that the brain's dead and the person's existence as a human being, which is our soul or our being, has left our body?
Well, I can tell you the theory on that. This is the horror genre movie theory, that what makes a zombie is that the brainstem is still alive, so that the heart beats, the lungs breathe, and there's some movement, but there is no higher order thinking. So they never say that the soul is gone, but I think without the thought, they're implying that there's no soul left.
Huh. That's very interesting. In Haiti, zombies were said to be people brought back from the dead, and sometimes controlled through magical means by priests and called bakers. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the witch doctor in the Voodoo.
Uh-huh.
Okay, they're being controlled, assuming under some kind of hallucinant drug, and there was a belief that there was a whole farm of these.
Yeah.
And they were used as slaves on this island farm. Mm-hmm. But there was no evidence ever found that the zombie field farm was ever found, but that was one of the beliefs that was going on.
I know in the book, The Serpent and the Rainbow, there's one part where I think it's the witch doctor that he's working with, learning all these things. He starts telling him that there's a mine where he has, I don't know, it was like 5 or 7 zombies working for him, digging out this mine. And I can't remember if he goes and looks for it or not, but that was the most I heard of, about 7 of them or so.
Right. And this zombie and voodoo is very popular in our southern states, down around New Orleans and Louisiana, and especially in the Everglades area, or I guess what is that called down there? The marshes,
the swamps,
there's people down there that are heavily involved in this, and it's, I guess, their pagan religion. And they practice, the rituals of the dead chickens and drinking the blood and this sort of thing. But it's very popular down there, and I'm assuming that they've probably utilized some kind of hallucinant drug to amplify this experience that they're having.
Probably, yeah.
So, the zombie has been,
it's a part of our culture.
Well, it is, and here we go back with the pagan religions again.
Yeah.
But and it's to these people, it's very real. But what is real? Real is your perception of being right now.
Yeah.
What's real to me might not be real to you, but that doesn't mean it's not very real to me.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we get back into studying this. And Hollywood is, again, brought out the zombie as being this creature that's dead and climbs out of the grave and funny and tries to kill you and tries to eat you. I'm assuming that the real zombie would still have to eat. I don't know if it would eat you or not, but and I don't know if the brain is such that it doesn't realize anything.
Right.
Why wouldn't it eat you? I mean,
from what I understand, they kind of feed them another drug that makes you very susceptible to suggestion. And we've got drugs like that. Like, you can inhibit someone's will by just giving them enough opioids,
right.
And then you tell them, hey, go walk down that hallway, and they kind of will. They'll stumble away. And who's to say that's not a modern zombie?
That's true. And so that's our little thing. Is there anything else you want to add on zombies while we're talking about this?
I highly recommend reading the book, The Serpent and the Rainbow. The movie is not as accurate. There's some fiction thrown in there.
Well, of course, you got to make it Hollywood.
Of course. But if you really want to learn, that always cracks me up. If you really want to learn about zombies, then you need to read that book. It's really kind of the definitive, at least 2/3 of it is just the definitive book on zombies.
Okay, I'm dying. You got to tell me the ending. What happens here? Some of us don't have time to sit down and read all these books.
I mean, he ends up going on a long trek. So 2/3 of the book, he's truly learning about zombies. Then, like, the last
now,
third
is that
of
the
book,
medical definition of a zombie? He's learning how they
true medical zombies, and he gets the recipe. He brings it back to the U.S. Everything. But the last third of the book is kind of like he goes on a trip through the jungle with these other guys, and he's just reflecting on how beautiful rainbows and waterfalls are. And so, if you want to stop after 2/3 of the book, I would say fine. But 2/3 of it is great.
So he brings his findings back, and now it's out as hydrocodone. Is that what?
Yeah, let's take some of that on Halloween and see what happens.
All right, Amanda, I've enjoyed our night's discussion.
Yeah.
So until next time, thank you, everyone.
All right, keep it zombie. And good night from Mothman Podcast. We hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Instagram, Twitter, and more. And take a look at our website, mothmanpodcast.com, to find out more about our services.